Good evening to all of you. Um, Thank you to Dr. Raja Amarnath for having me here in the SIPACA Masterclass, which is going to focus on COVID-19 patients. So this particular presentation is very important because as intensivists, as physicians, anesthetists, we will be faced with a situation where we are going to manage the airway in COVID-19 patients. So this particular slide, the initial slide, I would just like to, I just put this slide primarily because to showcase the countless sacrifices done by the frontline workers. They have made it to the front cover of Times Magazine. You can see the countless sacrifices they have done to fight this menace, to fight this pandemic of coronavirus. Okay, next slide. So to start off with, as you all know, SARS-CoV-2 is a highly contagious and predominantly it spreads through droplets. So there is no doubt in that it predominantly spreads through droplet. But there are some anecdotal evidences which clearly tell that probably there is an element of airborne spread also. So this makes it very, very, very dangerous for the healthcare professionals. As you all know, aerosol generating procedures carry a very high risk of transmission to healthcare workers. Intubation, tracheostomy, non-invasive ventilation, and face mask ventilation in decreasing order of severity contribute towards a high risk of transmission of infection to healthcare workers. Similarly, even procedures like extubation, bronchoscopy, and if you attempt CPR in a non-intubated patients, there is a very high risk of transmission of infection to healthcare workers. And many studies have clearly proven that the highest viral load appears to be in the sputum and in the upper airway secretions. As intubators, as airway managers, our main objective is to intubate a patient, secure an airway. So we have to bypass the upper airway. We have to cross through the upper airway and put the endotracheal tube into the trachea. So you have to imagine the kind of area which we are going to go through. So there is a very, very high risk that it may infect us. So this particular talk, I'm going to explain in detail how to manage a patient severe COVID pneumonia who needs intubation and what to do for that. Okay, next slide. So this is a very, very important slide. See, remember these 3 points: safe, accurate, and swift. So the procedure which you're going to do should be safe for the staff, the patient, and yourself. Okay, so not only it should be safe for the patient, but it should be safe for the staff also. And be very, very accurate. Don't experiment techniques which you may not know. Understood? So don't experiment procedures which you may not know. So try to do procedures in which you are very comfortable and try to avoid repeated techniques. And whatever you do, it should be done in a timely fashion. Don't rush into it. At the same time, don't delay it inordinately. Okay. So be very safe, be accurate, and be swift. So where to intubate? So how do we intubate these patients? That is a different thing. But where to intubate? So remember, the ideal thing would be to have a isolation room under negative pressure. So as you see here, there is a passive airflow and the negative pressure results in the air being forced out. So there is an anteroom, there is a patient room, there is a separate bathroom, there is a corridor outside. So this is how an ideal isolation room with negative pressure should be there. And this is the place where you have to intubate a patient safely. But what do you get? Now, to be very fair, you will be lucky to have this kind of a room. This is the maximum you will get. A room with an exhaust fan, whereby a negative pressure is created, the air is let out, HEPA filter can be attached there, and this will serve as a negative pressure room. Ideally, a single negative pressure room with more than 12 air exchanges per hour is needed. In pandemics, nothing is ideal. Okay. So when you have a lot of patients coming in, and when the pandemic is expanding, there will be a rapid expansion of critical care services in uncharted areas. So you will be moving out of ICUs, you will be putting patients in operating rooms, sometimes in labor OTs, and you will be intubating patients there and managing ICUs in these kind of areas. So they're all uncharted areas. As slowly as the pandemic is reaching the apex, the retired staff and medical students will also be roped in. The people who were working earlier would become very tired. They would have to be given adequate quarantine. So where will you get the manpower? So retired staff, medical students, all of them will be roped in. As a result, there will be an immense lack of trained personnel, and there will be a sense of despair, overwhelming workload, and this will result in breach in checklist. So all this will put together produce a great risk on the healthcare workers, and they will be at very, very high risk. So for this particular reason, you should have a COVID airway team. Okay. Now, what does it constitute a COVID airway team? There will be an anesthetist, there will be a physician or an intensivist, and apart from that, there will be an ENT surgeon or a head and neck surgeon. So this is a COVID airway team, and any tertiary care hospital or any hospital for the matter, which is taking care of COVID airway, which is taking care of COVID patients, COVID airway team is a necessity and it is not a luxury. Okay. COVID airway team is a necessity and not a luxury. I want to again insist on that. So the Safe Airway Society has given us some guidelines. So you must understand intensive training, early intervention, meticulous planning, vigilant infection control, efficient airway management processes, a clear communication, a standardized practice is very, very essential. So to safely get the airway as early as possible, we should have people who are very well trained, and there should be meticulous planning before you attempt an airway. At the same time, your infection control practices should be spot on, and there should be a clear chain of command, and communication should be also good. And try to standardize the practice, because in every shift, people will be changing, and every 2-3 weeks, there will be a new team coming into the picture. So if you have a standardized practice, you can prevent unnecessary errors from happening. Who should not be involved in intubating COVID-19 patients? There are no clear-cut national guidance, no clear-cut directives. But reasonably, to be on the safer side, anyone who is above 60 years, who has a cardiac disease, a chronic respiratory disease, diabetes, hypertension, and who's on immunosuppression, and pregnant ladies, generally we do not ask them to get involved in these kind of procedures. Okay, pregnancy per se doesn't have an independent risk factor, but you must understand if they get COVID-19, then it is slightly difficult to manage them in the sense we have to use some drugs on them. So ideally, these kind of people should not be involved in airway management of COVID-19 patients. Okay. So what do you mean by the term aerosol generating procedure? Aerosol generating procedures are described or defined as medical and patient care procedures that result in the production of airborne particles that create the potential for airborne transmission of infections that may otherwise only be transmissible by the droplet route. Okay. So here you can see how much aerosol is being generated. The procedure you're doing results in a lot of aerosol generation. What happens? See, if you're wearing a mask also, still the droplets get deposited on the mask. So you have to be very careful when you're doing these procedures. Preparation is very, very important. Institutional preparation is needed, not individual preparation. Your institution as a whole should be trained to manage these airways. Smallest number of staffs to be there. Okay, if I'm going to intubate a patient with COVID-19 pneumonia, don't put 20 people in that room. Okay, what we need inside and outside the room are very, very clear. Inside the room, there has to be an intubator. That's it. Sorry, there has to be a healthcare worker who can give the drugs and monitor. And there should be another healthcare worker who can assist the intubator for cricoid or be there to help him with the necessary equipments. Understood? and there should be outside the room a runner. He is parked there, so if they need any help, he has to run around and get the things in order. So the smallest number of staff should be involved in intubating a COVID-19 pneumonia. So this is the COVID-19 airway management. The 6 P's, your planning should be spot on. Negative pressure room is needed. Senior clinician involvement is needed. Anesthetist should be there. Remember, this is not a routine ICU where you try to intubate a patient. If you're not able to intubate, then you bag mask ventilate and call for help. No, no, no. You're going to do the intubation in a very, very small amount of time, stipulated amount of time. So all of them should be available. People who are well versed in intubation should be there. Okay. And you have to be prepared adequately. Intubation tray, etc. should be there. And PPE. PPE wearing is very, very important. You have to don and doff. That's also very important. Pre-oxygenation is very, very important. And post endotracheal tube management is very crucial. And you have to perform the procedure very, very carefully. I'll come to that one by one. Appropriate PPE. In COVID, there are no emergencies. Remember, if you're not wearing a PPE, don't rush into an emergency. There is no point in you running in to intubate a patient to save the patient's life when you are not wearing PPE. It doesn't make any sense. You will get infected. So PPE is an absolute necessity. So there are many types of PPE. These are the various types of PPE which are available. The buddy system is also important. When you are wearing a PPE, one of your staff members should be spotting on you. They should be seeing you how you are wearing, how you are donning the PPE. That is also extremely crucial. COVID intubation trolley. I've just highlighted the important ones. A Macintosh video laryngoscope. Keep the bougie still at nearby. If you're not able to intubate, sometimes you may have to use a second generation supraglottic airway. And viral filter is very important. Viral filter will prevent healthcare workers from getting infected. So these are things which you should have in the intubation trolley. A COVID intubation tray, this is a checklist. So when you enter into the room, you can tick on that and see what and all you have so that you don't miss anything. Okay, this is a circuit setup from the patient end, the endotracheal tube and the face mask. And then there is a viral filter, very important. You have to attach the viral filter. So this will prevent infection from transmitting to the healthcare worker. I'm again stressing on this point. So this is the COVID-19 emergency intubation checklist. What do you do before entering the room? First, check whether your team is there. Senior anesthetist, senior intensivist, someone to back you up. All of them should be there. Patient, check his ECG, BP stats, whether he's hemodynamically stable, hemodynamically unstable. Drugs, what and all drugs you want. You can't be running for everything. Everything should be there in the medication tray. Equipment, the various types of equipment which you're comfortable with, please keep them there. And if you're anticipating a difficult airway, etc., keep the difficult airway equipment also standby. And finally, once you enter into the room, you have to position the patient optimally. The fluids, inotropes, everything should be there as backup for you. And there will be some airway plans, plan A, plan B, plan C. So all of this should be in place. Okay. This is an emergency tracheal intubation kit dump. So this is also very important. The most important thing is the tube clamp. So when you're intubating, as the endotracheal tube is traversing through the trachea, the tube clamp will be attached to the endotracheal tube. We'll be clamping the endotracheal tube and intubating so that air will not escape through the trachea into the endotracheal tube and up. Got it? So once you connect to the ventilator only, then only you will be declamping it. That is also very important. So apart from that, these are other things which you should have. Okay. Technique of choice. There are many techniques. But remember, you have to choose the technique which you feel is very safe for you. And it should be a very simple technique. Next slide. Familiar and reliable. And finally, it must be robust. So whatever technique you choose, it has to be safe. It has to be simple, reliable, at the same time robust. So that you're able to pass through the endotracheal tube. You're able to pass the endotracheal tube in a single part, in a single attempt. So this is how we have to keep the bag mask at the same time. Why this slide is put is you have to see that there is a face mask, and above that, you can see the viral filter is also there. That is also very important. This is a circuit setup which you should have. Intubating technique should be a rapid sequence induction. That is a preferred technique of choice. Meticulous pre-oxygenation is needed. At least 3 to 5 minutes of pre-oxygenation is needed. And please avoid HFNC and NIV. Okay, there will be a lot of aerosol generation. And when you're going to intubate, try to avoid HFNC and NIV at that time because the people in the room will be exposed to it. And a HME filter between the circuit and catheter mount is very important. Patient should be positioned at least 30 to 40 degrees and you should be pre-oxygenating them. Okay. The VE hand grip, that is very, very important. So this is how you should hold the face mask. So previously we used to have the CE hand grip. Now that is not in vogue. The VE hand grip is there so that you'll be able to produce a tight occlusive seal between the mask and the patient's chin. Got it? So that there you will reduce the chance of leak. So the VE hand grip is it has to be done effectively. Induction and paralytics. What agents I'm going to choose? Coming to this, most of the COVID-19 patients post-intubation, they can have some element of hemodynamic instability. So ketamine can be used. At the same time, if the patients are hemodynamically stable and you don't anticipate some instability, propofol can very well be used. Fentanyl is the opioid anesthetic of choice. And when you come to paralytic agents, there are certain things which you should understand. Rocuronium 1.2 milligram per kilogram or succinylcholine 1.5 milligram per kilogram can be used. They will produce ideal intubating conditions in 120 seconds and 90 seconds respectively. So what is my objective? My objective is to reduce the time spent in the room. So I want to paralyze the patient as early as possible. Giving Rocuronium and all is not at all an option. So you have to use either Rocuronium or you have to use succinylcholine. Succinylcholine we used to use in anesthesia days 12 years back, very rampantly. Those times we used to use. But nowadays, because it gives beautiful intubating condition, this is again being used nowadays for these kind of COVID-19 pneumonia patients. So it is a wonderful drug which you can use, which will give you intubating conditions within 90 seconds. Remember, the patients can have some element of hemodynamic instability. They may crash post-intubation. At that time, it doesn't make sense running out of the room for fluids and inotropes. So keep everything standby so that you are able to stabilize the patient as early as possible. You intubate and you then come out of the room. Okay. So keep all these things standby. So the technique of choice in Western countries and even in our place is a video laryngoscope with a separate screen. So this will be the ideal technique to choose when you're going to intubate a patient with COVID-19 pneumonia. Okay. This is the clear-cut enunciation of how one should go intubating a patient with COVID-19 pneumonia. So first and foremost, what do you see? All of them are donned beautifully in PPEs. Okay, they have PPEs. They are all donned very well. Completely, they have a 995 mask. They have a face shield. They have a goggle. They're completely protected. And now they're using a video laryngoscope to intubate and with a separate screen so that the intubator is not in a position to come closer to the throat, so that he reduces the chance of aerosol generation. So he sees a screen which clearly tells you where the vocal cord is there, and through that he beautifully guides the endotracheal tube. So this is a clear-cut photo or a photograph depicting the way how you should go ahead intubating a patient with COVID-19 pneumonia. You can see in this, you can Google, there are so many different techniques which have been perfected around the world. But remember, whatever technique you choose, you should do the procedure as swift as possible. At the same time, see to that there is high level of protection. Okay. So you always use a tracheal tube with a subglottic suction port. And remember, in COVID-19 pneumonia, post-intubation, there is no role for a stethoscope. So auscultation of the chest is going to be difficult. You may have to get a chest X-ray, or you may have to use chest X-ray to find out whether there is a good, whether you have placed it appropriately, bilateral air entry is there or not. You cannot use your auscultation. A lung ultrasound or chest X-ray may be needed if there is a doubt about bilateral lung ventilation. These are important clinical caveats which you should understand. So this is the emergency tracheal intubation checklist. Again, I'm coming back to this. PPE, equipment preparation, difficult airway preparation, post-procedure and safety. Okay, you can take this later on. Unexpected difficulties. Suppose if you're not able to intubate, what will you do? Don't worry, just promptly transit through the algorithm of difficult airway. Try to minimize the attempts as much as possible. Don't panic. Be very calm, be very cool. The idea is to intubate as early as possible. If you're not able to intubate, somehow try to reduce the aerosol generation. Second generation supraglottic airway like a laryngeal mask airway can be used. Inflate the brim very well, put a tight seal and try to ventilate and see whether you can get some more senior anesthetist and then you are able to intubate it more effectively. Okay, but if all this fails and you're faced with a situation of cannot intubate, cannot oxygenate situation, then you have to go for a front of neck airway access, whereby you may have to go for a scalpel bougie technique for trichothyroidectomy. Okay. So post-intubation management is also very important. See, the moment you intubate the patient, you connect the patient to ventilator and try to move out of the room for at least 10-15 minutes. Okay, post-intubation management is very important. So the moment you intubate, what you do, you try to come out of that room. Okay, you come out of the room, you keep FiO2 at 100% and don't stand there and try to tinker with the ventilator settings immediately. Give some time for the patient, come out. So at that time, whatever aerosol has been generated, it would be removed out through the negative pressure or it will just get deposited in the floor. Okay. You can even do a small cleaning there after 20 minutes so that the next time when you enter into the room, it will be entering into a much safer zone. This is very important. So post-intubation, try to leave the patients at 100% FiO2 and just stand out. Just wait for some time. After 20 minutes, you can again go back. If the patient is crashing and going down, needs your presence, that is fair enough. You have to be there. But in other situations, try to be very, very careful. Okay, you know very well what you're doing, what kind of patient you're dealing with. So our job is to intubate the patient, save the patient. At the same time, we are responsible for the safety of our healthcare workers also. Okay, that also you should remember. HME filter is needed. You have to monitor the cuff pressure. So most of the times what happens if you don't monitor the cuff pressure, sometimes there might be a leak in the cuff pressure. And if a leak happens without inadvertently, there will be aerosols which will be escaping into the atmosphere. Okay, and monitor and record the tracheal tube depth also, because all of you will be in PPEs. You will not be going near the patient often. It is not a regular ICU patient. So tracheal depth, tube depth, sometimes may slip out, sometimes may go in and producing an endobronchial intubation. So these are things which you should remember. You may not be able to use a stethoscope to check for air entry every time. So these are things which you should remember. And always employ a closed tracheal suction. No open suction. To all the nurses, etc., I'm telling you, don't use open suction at all in a patient with COVID-19 pneumonia. Use only a closed tracheal suction. And sometimes sudden cuff leak can take place. If sudden cuff leak is there, you may have to pack the pharynx with some kind of throat pack, call the anesthetist, and then you may have to re-intubate the patient. So this is the bacterial filter, etc. I'm talking about. So airway intervention. Many of these patients with COVID-19 pneumonia, what happens is we have to also be careful on certain things. See, we may have to prone these patients, okay, like this, or we may have to shift the patient for a CT scan. So these are occasions where we may have to disconnect the patient from ventilator, etc. So at that time, there might be some aerosol generation which can result in healthcare workers getting infected. So try to ensure adequate sedation, avoid coughing, don't allow the patient to buck, don't allow the patient to cough, and clamp the tracheal tube, pause the ventilator so that both ventilation and gas flow will stop, separate the circuit with the HME still attached to the patient, reverse this procedure after reconnection. Very, very important. So never be in a hurry when you manage COVID-19 patients. Every step you have to be very careful that nothing escapes, no leak happens in the circuit. The circuit should be completely closed. That is very, very crucial. Sometimes accidental disconnections have taken place. Accidental extubations can take place. So remember, don't panic. Okay. Whatever, whoever is there should wear PPE and then only enter and solve the problem. Even if an accidental extubation takes place, please don't run into the room without wearing a proper PPE. Okay, always protect the tube, that is very important. And tracheostomy. See, tracheostomy, all of you know, it is an aerosol generating procedure. So in COVID-19 pneumonia, usually we attempt a tracheostomy after 2-3 weeks. Okay. So by the time the infectivity of the patient also will come down, and it will be more safe for the intensivist, the ENT surgeon, whoever is doing the tracheostomy, it is more safe for them. So try to avoid a tracheostomy on day 10, etc. and all. Please try to push it up to day 15, day 17, day 18. Then you can go ahead and do the tracheostomy. It will be more safer for the healthcare worker also. And actively heated and humidified wet circuits have to be avoided. Extubation. So like intubation, remember extubation is also a very, very, very risky procedure. But there is one thing which might save you. By the time a patient of COVID-19 pneumonia is ready to be extubated, it will be around day 12, day 13, day 14 of intubation. So before intubation itself, he would have had 7 to 8 days prior to from the onset of symptoms. So 8 days of symptoms. After that, he gets intubated. From then another 12 days, more roughly 20 days from symptom onset. That is the time when you will be extubating. So literally speaking, the chance of him being infectious to you is very, very less. But still, you must wear a PPE, the same as you did for intubation. Tracheal and oral suction is mandatory before extubation. Ideally, IV lidocaine, opioids, dexmedetomidine can be given to reduce cough, but there is no data, nothing to prove that it works. And always extubate to a face mask so that you are able to reduce the minimal chance of aerosol generation also. Using a supraglottic airway like LMA for a bridged extubation, please avoid it. It may not be of much use. Airway exchange catheter also is contraindicated because it will stimulate coughing from the patient end. Customary leak test is also not possible. Previously, in long-term ventilated patients, what will we do? Before we extubate, we'll do a leak test and see whether it's safe to extubate the patient. But here, if you do a leak test, there will be aerosol escaping through the leak. So we are not going to use this at all. And most of the patients with COVID-19 pneumonia, they have reported a high incidence of laryngeal edema and reintubation. So what we do is in our practice routinely, before we extubate these patients, we give us a dose of injection salmeterol 20 milligram, 4 doses, 6 hours apart. Go ahead and extubate this patient. Most of these patients will have post-extubation dysphagia and dysphonia. We have seen in some of our extubated patients, when we attempted to feed them, we were not able to feed them effectively. Okay. So this is how you extubate a patient of COVID-19 pneumonia. So as you remove the tube, you have to place the face mask, and remember, still the viral filter is going to be there. Still the viral filter is going to be there. That is going to provide you protection. So here, next, I'll show you a beautiful slide of, previous slide, please. Yeah. So we are using a transparent sheet, and as we extubate, we are attaching the face mask like this so that we are able to reduce whatever, if the patient coughs out also, it will not reach the healthcare workers. So the most important question, many of you intensivists, anesthetists, physicians, healthcare workers, everyone will be asking is, sir, I'm going to intubate a patient with COVID-19 pneumonia. Will I get infected with coronavirus? See, this is a study which has been done in China, in Wuhan, emergency tracheal intubations in 202 patients. But all the operators wore level 3 protection. Okay, all of them had adequate PPE, nil infection. 36 anesthetists were involved in intubating 202 patients, and all the anesthetists were not infected with coronavirus. So if you wear adequate personal protective equipment, definitely you can reduce the incidence of infection in people who are going to intubate these patients. The same thing was found out when the MERS epidemic happened in 2003. At that time also, when people wore proper PPE and took care of the patients, the incidence of infection happening to healthcare workers was very much reduced. So I want all of you to understand that if you wear PPE, proper PPE, and take care of these patients, the chance of you getting infected is less, but still sometimes it can happen. But overall, the chance of infection is very, very less. So the take-home message in this particular presentation would be, first and foremost, absolutely there are no emergencies in COVID pneumonia. Okay. So just because a patient is crashing, none of you should go into the room running without proper PPE and try to intubate the patient. That is very, very dangerous. you're putting all of them at risk. Second one, a rigorous quality control in procurement, donning and doffing of PPE. The PPE which you're going to use should be mandatorily went through a process of rigorous quality control. And apart from that, the entire procedure of donning and doffing should be adequately seen by a spotter. A buddy system should be in place. And COVID airway team, as I told you, is a necessity. It is not a luxury. The COVID intubation trolley, tray, kit, and checklist are a must. A video laryngoscope with a separate screen, that is will be the technique of choice. If you don't have a video laryngoscope, don't worry, use your routine laryngoscope. Go ahead and safely do the procedure as early as possible. Only precaution, endotracheal tube should be clamped so that as you enter into the endotrachea, the air gushing out doesn't come out into the atmosphere. Okay. And similarly, before you enter the room, see to that everything is in place. The medication tray, equipments, gadgets, etc., which are very, very important for you to intubate the patient. Viral filter is very important. Never forget the filter. Closed suction is crucial. And there is no open nebulization in COVID ICUs and COVID wards. Don't use respicules for open nebulization. Use only MDI with spacer. That is the only way to go about. This will reduce the incidence of aerosol generation. And when you're going to extubate these patients, try to minimize coughing as much as possible. Remember, as a team leader, enormous responsibility rests with you. You're not only responsible for the safety of the patient, but you're responsible for the healthcare worker and you yourself. So be very careful, be very clear, precise in what you do, and be safe to everyone. Thank you. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Ebenezer. It was really, to be honest, very eye-opening things. From basic ABCD, you covered to the most complicated topics also. Thank you so much, sir.